In this video, I'm going over my sourcing chapter of the book. In the beginning, I go over various websites to get anything you need, and really, I provide a lot of information. I give you the farmer that I buy my buttercream and cheese from, coconut oil suppository advice, affordable clay, the optimal clay, organs, nut seeds, dates, carob powder, and that's all in the beginning of this chapter. So I need to say, you need to be willing to drive, up to an hour or two. Realistically, you can find the milk and eggs within 30 to 60 minutes of most locations. I do need to say, don't expect to find fresh meats from a farm. You're basically going to waste your time. It's very unlikely you're ever going to find fresh meat from a local farm because they're all built to freeze their product. You could realistically find a farm nearby, wherever you are, where you can find chickens to buy live and slaughter. All you have to do is ask, but more conveniently, it's more convenient to just buy from like Whole Foods or Sprouts because it's usually good enough and fresh, but hey, it's nice to slaughter chickens every once in a while. So, and what I mean by that is, getting the meat warm and the whole experience, and it's not been refrigerated yet, so it's actually more nutritious, and it's a whole experience to do it. And you also get some blood. So, every time you call someone, leave a message and send them a text. If they don't answer, follow up and contact them the next day. If they don't have what you need, ask them if they know anybody who might know. So don't just leave one message or text them one time or whatever. You have to sometimes message them multiple times. And so if you want, you could try to educate them on what you're looking for and to see if maybe they'd change their standards to meet your needs. But, unless you're a good salesman, it's unlikely. Most people are set in their ways. But it doesn't hurt to spread awareness because you plant the seed that might change something in the future. Like explaining why soy is bad for chickens and how it's treated with kerosene and how all the supplements and the feeds are all chemically processed and alternatives that you can share with them. So you need to be prepared to make lots of phone calls. It might only take 20 minutes of researching, but it might take 2 hours of calling farmers to find what you need. And I mean, 2 hours of being on the phone, it's like 2 hours of scrolling through websites and leave 20 or 30 messages. But realistically, it's not going to be that hard. That's at like the very most. Unless you're trying to find rare things, like sometimes you can find bone marrow organs or glands that are way cheaper than any other source because nobody knows about them. And if you find them and you give them to anybody, it's likely that the price is going to double or triple within a short period. So if you research really hard, you can eventually find sources where you can get really cheap stuff. In some areas, you just get lucky. Like you might live in a certain city, you might just have some like liquid gold, not liquid gold, but like you find some, you strike gold. So you call all the websites that I provide at the top of this chapter. If you can't find what you need or you want to try to find local, of course you have to find the eggs locally. Ordering eggs online isn't nice. It's best to order the buttercream and cheese online. Well, usually you're never going to find butter locally. You can sometimes. Cream, you can. Cheese, very rare. So it's like you need to find the milk and the eggs locally. And then for finding the food locally, you have to go to farmers markets, use the websites I provided at the top, and I'd start the websites I provided. Then if you can't find anything on the websites, then you have to go to the farmer markets and ask every farmer. And you can also post on Facebook. And so farmers are often on the spectrum of uneducated rather than dishonest. You might ask if the eggs are fed soy, and they will say it's not because it doesn't say soy on the front of the package. And they have often never even considered looking at the ingredient label, the feed they're using. They just buy whatever the shit is and use it, and without any research, because they think the farm store has what you need, and like that, it's fine. But they don't know how corrupt it is. So they'll say it's not fed soy because the box doesn't say soy, and then you ask for a picture of the back, and the first ingredient is soybean meal. Like, yeah, it's not fed soy. Okay, the first ingredient is soy. You never even looked at your own feed? What the fuck are you doing owning a farm? How can you own a farm and then never even do a fucking minute of research? Okay, same goes for honey. Honey can be labeled unheated. Then I'll be like, oh, your honey's unheated? You don't heat it at all? Yeah. What temperature do you warm it to for pouring? Maybe 105. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. It's unheated. Yeah, it's actually completely fucking ruined. So it's like, oh, we don't heat it, but we do warm it. I'm like, what's the difference? Like, why did they give me a different answer when I say heat versus when I say warm? That's how some people are. So you have to ask them like multiple different ways. Like you don't apply any heat. Like the machine doesn't get warm at all. Make sure like it's not fed sugar. And usually they'll be honest about the sugar, obviously. But the heated thing, yeah. So you have to find out that it hasn't been above. You have to make sure it hasn't been above 93 degrees. And people argue about temperatures and stuff, but let's just listen to Audrey and do what he says. A lot of people will be like, oh, the beehive naturally gets to 98 degrees. I'm like, well, is that an artificial beehive sitting in the middle of the sun? Isn't like a beehive like going to regulate itself better than a piece of plastic? And also, it'd probably put it in the shade. I don't know. Audrey says that if it gets above 93 degrees, they abandon that part of the hive. And if they do eat it in desperation, they usually become a lot less stable. So, going on to meat. Meat must always be fresh. If you already have frozen meat, save it for emergencies or sell it or give it to a neighbor. Cooked, frozen, and salted meat releases toxins into the body. It's fine to eat conventional meat from the store. So, you can buy meat from the grocery store. Doesn't have to be grass-fed. Just make sure it's fresh. And don't buy the name brand meat. Buy the meat that is packaged inside of the store. They cut it up in the back of the butcher, and then they wrap it, and they put it in the back. I'm not talking about only on the butcher counter, but they cut it up and put it in saran wrap on like these trays in the corner of the stores, on the shelves. But it doesn't have a name brand on it. It just says the cut of meat. It's not like from a specific farm with a website. There's none of that information on it. The stuff that's packaged from a website or a name brand, it's much more likely to have chemicals because it's not as fresh, and nobody's watching, so they can do whatever they want to it. Because if you saw the butcher spraying every single package with some shit, you probably wouldn't eat it. But if they do it somewhere else and then bring it to the store, you're not going to know. So don't buy the name brand meats from the store. The concern of quality comes to organs, glands, and marrow, because that's where most of the toxins are stored. If the animals had anything bad whatsoever, these parts of the body are going to be toxic. Organs, glands, and marrow must be pasture-raised, no vaccine, no dewormer, no antibiotic, no hormone, no soy, non-GMO, and be fresh. Preferably no grain unless the farmer grew the grains himself, because most grains are full of chemicals, glyphosate, and they also have supplements in the packaging. I've seen people get sick from not being careful with this. Okay, so now I talk more about beef. Of course, it's preferable to have grass-fed meat as there's more nutrients, but muscle meats don't have to be grass-fed. Just make sure the meat is fresh, never frozen. I already talked about this. If you ask a grocery store if it's fresh and they say it's fresh, 99% chance it actually is fresh. Because these Whole Foods, Sprouts, every store is the same. They're not lying about it. Some random employee is not lying to you about it. And you can tell that fresh meat and frozen meat tastes different. If it's like some small family-owned store and there's only one location, they might not pay attention. They might actually not know, because they're sloppy, or they might lie to you because they're fucking being lazy and they don't have a corporate to hold them accountable. So the employees really don't give a shit because nobody's gonna do anything about it. Unlike a Whole Foods, corporate's on people's asses, the employees' asses. So, one note about the name brand meat. Here, I'd mention it again. Sometimes it smells like bleach. I don't trust it. Let's see. So, I really want to do these videos in one take because editing these are a fucking pain in the ass. So, vacuum sealed meat. Okay, you can get vacuum sealed meat in bulk from the back of the cooler at the butcher. So if you're buying 8 packages of meat for the week, you could actually just go to the butcher and get one giant piece of meat, usually for cheaper, and it's more fresh because it's retained all the moisture because it's vacuum sealed. It hasn't been sitting out to dry, whether in the counter or in a package. So ideally, once a week, you go to the butcher, or every 10 days, and you get the vacuum sealed meat from the back. So it's hey, I want your cheapest cut that's grass-fed, if they have it, that's not cut up yet, still in the package, still in the vacuum sealed package in your cooler. And then they'll get this big slab of meat, and then they'll weigh it and put a thing on it. And so if there is any chemicals on the meat in the packaging on the shelves, this stuff is going to have way less because it's one giant piece. It's not like they can expose every single piece to it. The only way the meat's going to get chemicals in it at the grocery store buying the ones I told you to in the packaging, not the name brand stuff like where they cut it up. You want the stuff where they cut it up, because the tables might have chemicals on them that they didn't clean all the way, and so a little bit might get on the first few pieces when they cut it up, if they're being sloppy with it. That's why the meat already in the package is best, because less surface area for chemicals. So, let's see. Chicken, preferably it's pasture raised, fed no soy, no canola, and non-GMO. Here's the thing: it's pretty hard to get the quality of chicken that we actually want. So, just Mary's chicken is fine, or Whole Foods has like 2 pasture raised options. Sprouts has a pasture raised option. My favorite one is probably the tenders from Sprouts, the grass-fed tenders. And I don't eat most free-range chicken. The only reason I eat Mary's chicken, and it's free-range, and I'll still eat that. The only reason I do that is because someone I know who is very, very sensitive eats it, and he's fine. And he's super picky about food sourcing. So I'm like, this guy knows like the most about the diet, and if this guy eats this, then okay, I'll eat it. But the other free-range stuff is like usually trash. And never buy the chicken that has 5% retained water, because it's water with chlorine in it. But most of the chicken that we're buying that's pasture-raised or even free-range doesn't have that. Some of the really cheap stuff does. Fish. The bigger fish are healthier. They're deeper in the sea and exposed to less chemicals. So the only fish I will eat is swordfish and tuna. There might be another option or two, but the ones I actually see when I travel and I can actually access: swordfish and tuna. Never from the West Coast. I'll eat it from Australia. I'll eat it from the East Coast. Never the Gulf. I'll eat it from Canada. I had some from Greece before. I didn't like it. I didn't trust it. And maybe it's fine. Some Europe sources are fine. But never Japan. Never, what's the island? Marshall Island. Panama is extremely toxic. The west coast of Mexico, I think, is fine. I forgot what they call it. Yeah, never, ever eat salmon, because a lot of it is GMO, even if wild caught, and vaccinated too. So, like, salmon makes people sick. Don't eat salmon. Oysters are the safest seafood because they store their toxins in their shells. As I said earlier, the oysters also help you detox metals really fast, usually without symptoms. They have shitloads of minerals, which we need a tremendous amount of to remove heavy metals. And it's just really good for your overall health. When it comes to shrimp, if it's gray, Agenus says it's contaminated. It needs to be rich and red. Agenus says Vietnam was a good place when he was alive, but that was 12 years ago. If you're at Whole Foods and the label does not say where the fish is from, you need to ask for a manager, and then you need to ask the manager to get an invoice to show you where the fish are sourced from. Now, 2/3 of the time, they're gonna say they don't know what they don't know what you're talking about, or that they don't have access to that, or that the paper doesn't say it. And then what I say is, well, I have done this at other locations. The managers have either showed me on their phone and their email, or they've already had it printed out, and it says exactly where it is from. And sometimes you have to argue with them because they're either being lazy or they're just being willfully ignorant, and they're being lazy. So either they're lazy because they can do it and they don't want to, or they're being lazy because they know they can but they don't want to. So I've always been able to get, sometimes I just don't feel like dealing with it because sometimes they'll fight with me, but most of the time they'll give it to me and then they'll tell me exactly where it's from, and it might take 5 or 10 minutes for them to get it, and you only really have to do it once every month or two, or every 2 or 3 months, because sometimes they change the sources. I had this amazing swordfish source in Nashville, and then I came back after being away for a little bit, and it tasted terrible. And the source changed. I'm like, oh, come on, now I can't get swordfish. So, not every area has the proper quality swordfish or tuna. I'd say most do though, but the Whole Foods always have the oysters. It's $1 each on Fridays if you're Amazon Prime member. So it's good to buy a 50 bag of oysters. They get bags of oysters that come in about 50 to 55. So just ask for a 50 bag of oysters. $50, you might get 50 to 55 for $50. Dairy. Hopefully you live in a country with easy accessibility. If you don't, you'll need to work very hard to either find a farm, start your own farm, or move to another country. If you have enough people in one area desiring raw foods, you could contract with a farmer to produce food specifically for you in a private club. Or you can combine all of your money to buy a farm as a community and then produce the food for yourself. The thing is, you have to get raw milk. You really can't live your life without it. It's extremely important. I know it might not be everybody's destiny to focus on getting raw milk, but if I had a say in it, I would say you should make getting raw milk probably your top priority over anything, if you have any control over your life. And if you don't have control over your life, you should probably be working to get control over your own life. Whether it's, not having things holding you back, having the money. But look, of course, if you have a family and you have kids and people you're responsible for, hey, that might be more important than milk, but let's think about it like this. If you're responsible for them, shouldn't you be trying to get them the milk too? And, I just have an example. It's like, what if you have to move and your kids have to leave their friends and change schools just so you can get raw milk? I'd probably say it's definitely worth it. Could that? I can't say for every case ever, but for me, that's how much I value raw milk. It's hard to live without, and it's gonna increase your potential as a person tremendously, in my opinion, from my experience, because it's so important. It's so extremely important. Butter. Most butter is frozen and salted. A lot of small farmers will refuse to make you fresh butter unless you offer to buy an entire batch off of them, like 20 to 40 pounds. Butter doesn't really go bad. It might start getting stinky and start molding on the top after a few months. Well, it'll get stinky after a few weeks at room temperature, but I can't tell. Other people can tell. Usually the girls can smell it. I can't. Some guys can smell it too. And so I don't mind the stinky butter. I can't even hardly tell the difference between that and the fresh butter. Some people fucking gag off the stinky butter. I'm like, I don't even smell anything. So if you can't find a farmer that will sell fresh butter, it's easy to make or order online. For making butter, see Making Butter in the Recipes chapter. Cream should be easy to find. Most places that sell raw milk also have cream, and I've never seen it frozen. Sometimes you go to a farm, the milk will accidentally be frozen in the fridge. I won't buy that, by the way. If anything gets frozen in plastic, the plastic toxins get into the meat or the milk or the butter or whatever. And also you're losing 80% of the nutrients anyway. So, cheese. It's extremely unlikely you will find cheese locally. You're probably going to need to find it online. If you want more details, I would... Here, I'll just read it right now. If you want to make cheese or convince a farmer to start making cheese, you can use the conventional rennet from the store. Even though it's chemically processed, it's such an extremely small amount, it's okay. And the temperature of the cheese cannot go above 104 degrees when you're heating up the milk. And has to be the industrial stainless steel machine that constantly stirs the milk so that the edges don't get too hot, and it's temperature controlled so no part of the milk gets too hot and it's constantly rotating. But ideally the milk does not go above 98 degrees. But 104 is the max, but 98 is the ideal max temperature. And no salt not necessary. And if you're vacuum sealing the meat, do not vacuum seal the meat until it's sat out to dry in the open air for at least a few days. It should start to get a little bit hard, a slight crust on the outside of the cheese. It will keep longer and taste better. The drier, the better. Generally speaking, the drier, the better. Raw whey. Whey, W-H-E-Y, like whey protein powder, the liquid raw whey that it's made from, comes as a byproduct of making cheese. Just make sure that you ferment the milk without the presence of light, or else the whey will become bitter. And just letting the milk sit out, eventually the liquid emerges. Just strain it through a cheesecloth or a strainer, ideally a cheesecloth, and then you'll have your whey. Eggs, use the directory websites at the top of the page. go to farmers markets, but I would just call local hens. That's why I start with local hens and the raw milk sites. Spend 20-30 minutes leaving voice messages and you'll probably find it. If not, you're going to have to go to the farmer market, and every farmer market in your area until you find one. Even if you're driving to further farmer markets, ask everybody. You know where to get raw milk, you know where to get no soy eggs. Grocery store eggs are usually very low quality, even if pasture raised. I've had some nasty shit from the grocery store. So I just generally really try to avoid the grocery store. In desperate times while traveling, if I'm in desperate need of eggs, sometimes I will do the grocery store eggs, but I really don't like to. Sometimes they make me a little sick. Like I'll get headaches off of them. Water. You want to get naturally carbonated mineral water. If it doesn't say natural, then it is synthetic carbonation. Carbonated water passes inspection without adding chemicals. You can use websites to find local natural water springs to fill up your own containers. But maybe they can be contaminated. I don't know. People talk about that. Not really sure. And about the carbonation passing inspection, heard Agenus say it. And I just know that the other water sources that are still water, they do ozone treatment and they do other stuff to it, and it's just sketch. San Pellegrino might not be safe anymore. I don't know, because it doesn't say natural on it. I think it used to. But Gerolsteiner is really the go-to for all of us. And they also have naturally occurring minerals. So if you talk about someone doing a heavy metal test on them, it's going to show heavy metals in the water tests where you put electrical nodes, whatever sticks in them. It changes the color of the water depending on what's in it. People will be like, oh, there's heavy metals in it. But Agenus just says it's the minerals naturally in it. It's actually not a toxic form. So you can also use your local farmer to get well water. When you get your raw milk, you can fill up your some containers with well water. And you can use that for your ice cubes for your hot baths. Where you make your ice cubes in glass, not plastic, because remember the plastic, if you freeze it, it gets into it. So you make your ice cubes in glass with well water from your farmer or from a local spring. And you crush the ice cubes, mix it with water, and you dip the rag in there, and you wring it out on your forehead so you can cool off in the hot bath. Produce. Should be able to get everything at the grocery store. Get organic if you can. You usually can. And let's see. It's pretty self-explanatory there. Every grocery store sprays a chemical solution on the produce every few minutes. Literally every single grocery store. So you're basically fucked, and there's nothing you can do about it until you get your own farm, or you put money with other people to produce food sources, or convince farmers near you to produce food the way that you need it to be produced. And so this chemical solution, we have to bite the bullet. Really, realistically, there's nothing we can do about it right now unless you have money, or you can convince a farmer to start a whole operation for you have to have enough people to buy the product to even convince the farmer. So are we going to be shipping celery across the country? I don't know. I think you'd have to have a lot of people to make it viable. A lot of people in one location. So we basically have to start our own grocery store that has at least 20, more like 30, 40, 50 members that buy every week in order to make it affordable. So, vegetable juice, celery. Get your celery from the grocery store. Most farmer market celery is actually really low quality. Tastes like shit. Super small, super skinny, and it's bitter. If you buy flimsy celery, like the skinny, flimsy shit, it makes half as much juice and doesn't taste good. Good quality celery, it's sweet because it has a high mineral content. Everyone wants to talk about depleted soils, but I'm like, okay, of course the soils are depleted where you're monocrop farming. But if you had an organic farm for 5, 10, 20 years, and you're rotating cattle on it and not using chemicals and stuff, I expect it to be pretty good. They talk about the chemtrails putting aluminum in the soil. Yeah, it might be doing that, right? But is the soil as fucked as they say it is? Well, here's the thing. They will use the soil being bad as an excuse to why you have to take supplements or do some bullshit. Whether the soil is good or not, we still eat the optimal foods. The optimal foods don't change depending on the soil. But look, if you get some fruit grown on shit soil versus good soil, of course, yeah, but it's still fruit. It's not like we're gonna go vegan or we're gonna take some weird shit that someone's trying to sell us. If the celery is a little... Okay, so celery can be bitter, and that can still be okay. Because sometimes it's just naturally bitter, and it's detoxifying. And so if it's bitter, you need to add a little bit more cream to it. That's going to be important, so it doesn't overly detox you. Well, so the symptoms don't hit you too hard. If you have the cream with it, it helps balance it out. If you don't see good, thick celery, try a different grocery store. Some grocery stores have better quality celery than others. For whatever reason, even though all grocery stores are buying the same brand of celery, I don't know why, somehow, one grocery store has really good celery and the other one doesn't when they're both ordering from the same place. It just happens. I cut off the root of the celery. I think it makes it bitter. I know the carrots it does for sure. I just do the celery, just it's more convenient. And when you're juicing the celery, put the leaves first because it sucks it into the juicer and it's less effort. Carrot, cut off the root before juicing as it will make it bitter. Fruit should always be unripe. Pineapple should be green and hard, not green and squishy, but green and hard. Green papaya, green mangoes, green bananas, etc. Unripe fruit has more enzymes and less sugar. Always wash berries before eating them, even if they're organic. Use a bowl of proper quality water with a few tablespoons of raw milk and a splash of apple cider vinegar, and then put it in the bowl of it and stir it every few minutes, or put it in a jar, shake the jar every few minutes. And you can reuse that chemical washing water solution for like 2 weeks if you store it in the fridge. The bananas don't need to be so green that you can't peel them, but like barely green, barely ripe enough to peel, not to where you can't even peel it, because then it's just too much. Bee products. Honey must never be heated above 93 degrees, not fed anything other than sugar. Not be fed anything other than honey, no sugar, no supplements. Most beekeepers feed them sugar or corn syrup in the off season. Some will argue the sugar doesn't hurt them, but they have no idea what they're talking about. Sorry. And they'll argue with you about the temperature. Don't listen to them. They're just being lazy and doing what's convenient. Instead of ever them asking, what makes you believe that? Could you give me some information? This is important information. All they do is argue with you. Well, that's my experience at least. I've never had a farmer inquire with respect about, like, they'll just argue with me. I'm like, if this is important information, why do they argue with me? It's like they take it personally. Want to know why? Because they've been beekeeping for 20 years and they turn it into their personality, and they have their ego based in it. So if they're wrong about something, then it's like, then they're defending their ego. They're not actually, that's just been my experience. I generally trigger people. Just what happens. Maybe you guys have a different experience. So yeah, I talked about the honey a little bit earlier. Let's see. Some beekeepers will go to the farmer market and then put the honey on their table in the beating sun in the middle of the summer, and their jars of honey are getting hot at the farmer market sitting in the sun. And so they'll say it's not heated, but it got to like 110 degrees sitting on the table at the farmer market. So that's another thing you have to ask about. Like, do you go to farmers markets? Can you think of any time where you let it sit in the sun in the summer, or when it's been hot out? If honey looks discolored in certain parts, like sometimes it gets bubbly or at the top, that's not always bad, but sometimes it's a result of it getting hot. Whole Foods might contract with a trucking company, and the trucking company might be doing a shitty job about keeping their trucks at a proper temperature, and they might get hot. And sometimes the honey comes in, and I can look at it and be like, I know this honey got heated. Really raw honey doesn't normally look like that. Really raw honey is thick because of the way they process it, which is acceptable. They blend it. I don't know how it doesn't oxidize it, but somehow it's okay. It's hard to tell if the honey is raw based off of looking at it. You really can't tell unless you're familiar with that honey brand and you've been buying it, and like you know what it's supposed to be like, and you can tell that this one's different than this one, but they're from the same place. So really raw honey is good. Weebie honey can be good. Sometimes they feed it sugar. You have to call every year and make sure that this wasn't a year where they happened to feed sugar. But you can't really always trust that because they might mix up their product or whatever, but because maybe not everyone got sugar. You can buy really raw honey from their website in big buckets and get a big discount. I would never, ever, ever, ever buy honey from Amazon because it's very likely to have gotten too hot. Pollen is very rare to find pollen. A lot of farmers will dry their pollen and tell you it's fine and argue with you. And they'll get upset when you don't buy it because you say it's not good. And or they'll freeze it and then it's ruined already. And so it has to be fresh, not dried, not frozen. But it's extremely rare to find a farmer actually educated to actually know to keep it fresh. They all think the freezing and drying is completely fine. And so you need to have the bee pollen in stock just in case you have an emergency, because you can use the pain formula, which can help you tremendously. Royal jelly, go to gohoney.net. You have to request for it to be fresh. They freeze it unless you ask. Frozen is ruined. Most royal jelly is frozen. So you have to ask when they're going to make it next and if they can hold some fresh for you with your name on it. Nuts and seeds, even if raw, almost always pasteurized. Very hard to find in grocery stores, at least. Maybe farmers markets. But there's more people producing raw milk and raw eggs than there are growing nuts and seeds. People don't really do that. So you're probably going to have to order online. Coconuts, you need the mature coconuts, the hard ones, not the thin ones like in Whole Foods with the straw on it. You know, like where it's like mushy on the inside and you can scrape it. Coconuts don't have to be organic. Coconut cream, coconut oil, I provide the link in this chapter in the book. The coconut cream, you have to make it at home. See coconut cream in the recipe section. I don't think there's real coconut oil in the United States. I'm really not sure. I don't trust it. I heard one source recently. I still have to verify. It's a little sketch. I need to find out. But coconut cream, I don't know if you can actually get it. There's Healthfully Farm. They provide it actually. And so that is the sourcing chapter.